My cousin took care of my grandfather for years. We all praised her for it. Then he died and left her nothing. Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's all be internet friends. The last time I saw the house, the shutters were green and the mailbox leaned to the left. Now they're both gray, the shutters, a faded smoke color, and the mailbox, steel and bolted upright like someone finally decided to fix things that didn't matter. I parked behind my uncle's truck and left the engine running for too long. Just sat there, fingers clenched on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed 3 times, group chat, probably. Someone asking if there were enough chairs. Someone else saying Rachel would know. I stepped out and the air hit cold, too cold for March. I zipped my jacket and stared at the porch where Grandpa used to sit with a blanket over his knees, coffee in a travel mug he never washed. Rachel would bring it out to him like clockwork, even when he didn't ask. Especially when he didn't ask. Everyone said she was the selfless one. She gave up her apartment when he fell the first time, left her job in the city, moved in just like that. No complaints, no announcements, just a note in the group chat, "I'll be with Grandpa for a while." And she stayed 3 years. She learned which of his meds made him dizzy, memorized the number for his cardiologist, took him to every appointment, ran his errands, made him soup from scratch even when he said canned was fine. She was there when he got confused and called her by Mom's name. She was there when he forgot Mom had died. The rest of us were just visitors. I'd fly in every few months, pretend to be helpful for a weekend, offer to run to the store, then forget the list. Bring takeout, reheat leftovers. Rachel never rolled her eyes. She'd just say, "He likes his mashed potatoes smooth, not lumpy." And I'd nod like that was a normal sentence to say out loud about your cousin's cooking. The front door was open when I got to the steps. Rachel was inside, talking to Aunt Lisa in that quiet, measured way she always used, like every word was being weighed on some scale the rest of us didn't see. I stepped in and said nothing. Just dropped my bag by the coat rack and looked around. Same furniture, same smell, antiseptic and cinnamon. The hospital bed had been moved out, but the imprint was still there in the carpet, a rectangle of absence. Rachel turned, saw me, and didn't smile. "Avery," she murmured, "you made it." "Yeah," my voice came out dry. "Got an early flight." She nodded once. Her eyes looked puffy but dry. She didn't wear mascara anymore. Probably hadn't in years. Aunt Lisa moved to hug me. Her perfume hit like nostalgia and stale wine. "We've missed you," she said too quickly. I didn't answer. Rachel was already walking back toward the kitchen. She hadn't cried, they said. Not when he died, not at the mortuary, not even when she picked out the urn. "She's in shock," Uncle Paul had texted. "She was with him when he went. That kind of grief doesn't show up all at once." Maybe. Or maybe Rachel just didn't have anything left to show. The living room filled slowly, cousins, spouses, neighbors dropping off food no one asked for. People hugged too hard, spoke too softly. Every corner of the house had someone remembering something. Grandpa's laugh, Grandpa's stories, Grandpa's obsession with measuring out exact change at the gas station. And always, somehow, Rachel's name came up. If it weren't for Rachel, thank God for Rachel, she gave up everything. I stood by the fireplace, watching her pour coffee for people who didn't need it. She moved like a ghost in scrubs, soft-footed, unobtrusive, always in the right place without ever seeming to try. She was the angel, someone whispered behind me. I didn't turn around, just stared at the armchair Grandpa used to call his command station. Rachel had kept it clean, even toward the end when he stopped using it. 3 years of dressing him, cleaning him, lifting him from bed to chair and back again. I remembered her arms getting stronger, her shirts getting looser, how she stopped wearing jewelry because he might grab it by accident when he got confused. She was the one who knew how to calm him down. When he got scared or combative or thought the nurses were trying to poison him, Rachel would kneel next to him and speak just loud enough. She never flinched, never snapped. Never once raised her voice, so no one questioned it when she said he didn't want visitors those last 2 weeks. "He's tired," she texted. "He wants to rest. He said he'd rather not have anyone else see him like this." That's what she told us. And we believed her. We used to toast her at every holiday. "She's the reason Grandpa's still with us," Aunt Lisa would murmur, glass raised. God bless Rachel. The group chat was full of it too, hearts, clapping emojis, little updates about how Rachel had spent all day at the hospital or how she'd figured out a new pill schedule. No one ever asked if she was okay. We just praised her like she ran on gratitude alone. She didn't push for attention. That was the thing. She'd post a blurry photo of Grandpa eating soup and just write, "Long day." He liked the tomato basil. Nothing dramatic, nothing fishing, just facts. And still, we flooded her with it. "You're amazing, we owe you so much, don't know how you do it." I sent those texts too. Hit send without thinking, probably while I was on the subway or half listening to a meeting. Rachel would always reply the same way, "Just doing what needs to be done." 3 years of that, of watching her slowly become the default authority on everything Grandpa. His meds, his mood, his medical directives. She spoke in shorthand now, abbreviations for prescriptions, acronyms I didn't recognize. If someone asked how he was doing, everyone turned to Rachel before they even finished the question. She moved in without a fuss. Gave up her lease, boxed up her books, left her job as an occupational therapist. Said she could always go back later. She never did. There were nights I'd call the house and she'd pick up on the third ring, whispering from the hallway. "He just fell asleep," she'd whisper, or, "He's agitated tonight. I'll call you tomorrow." I never knew if tomorrow came. I stopped asking. It's not that the rest of us didn't care, we just didn't know what caring required. Rachel did. Rachel filled in every crack we didn't see. Caught him when he slipped getting out of bed. Relearned the insurance portal after every policy change. Took pictures of new bruises to send to the nurse line, just in case. She didn't cry when we forgot his birthday. Didn't complain when the cousins skipped Thanksgiving because flights were expensive. She just sent pictures of the two of them eating mashed potatoes on folding chairs in the kitchen. It's easy to turn someone into a hero when they never ask to be one. I remember one afternoon, maybe last summer, when I visited and tried to make myself useful. I offered to take Grandpa to the park. Just a walk, nothing strenuous. Rachel hesitated. "He gets overstimulated outside," she murmured, "and you have to double-check the oxygen tank." "I can handle it," I replied. She didn't argue. Just handed me a folded sheet of paper, instructions, med times, the code to the side gate. She stood in the doorway while I got him settled in the wheelchair, her arms crossed, lips tight. Watching like a teacher watching a student about to flunk something simple. We didn't make it to the end of the block. He started coughing so hard I thought he'd pass out. I couldn't figure out the tank tubing, and by the time we got back, Rachel had the nebulizer ready and the chair turned toward the window. "Next time, just let me know," she said. No anger, no judgment. Just the kind of calm that comes after you've already cried about it 3 months ago. I stood in the hall that night after she put him to bed and stared at the photos on the wall, ones of him in his army uniform, of him holding Rachel as a baby. She was always in more of them than the rest of us. She earned that. He used to light up when she walked into the room. Didn't matter what time it was or how bad the day had been. The second Rachel stepped in, something in him relaxed. His jaw unclenched. His hands stopped twitching. He'd track her across the room like a dog watching its owner. Not eager, just reassured. Safe. I saw it happen a dozen times, maybe more. I'd be sitting across from him, trying to make conversation, asking if he remembered the old diner on Main, or if he wanted to hear about my latest job. His eyes would stay on the television. No answer. Then Rachel would come in holding a tea mug, and he'd suddenly sit up straighter like something had clicked into place. "Tea," he'd murmur. "You read my mind. You asked for it 20 minutes ago," she'd reply, setting it down with a faint smile. He never remembered asking. She never pointed it out. There was this kind of rhythm between them. She anticipated every shift, adjusted the blanket before he reached for it, tilted the blinds before the sun hit his eyes. She always knew when he needed help standing, when he needed quiet, when to turn off the news because the yelling made his chest tight. The rest of us showed up with questions. Rachel showed up with solutions. Uncle Paul once tried to install one of those pill organizers with alarms, the kind with flashing lights and beeps that sound like a microwave. It lasted one afternoon. Grandpa got agitated, accused it of mocking him. Rachel took it down that night, didn't say a word, just brought back the color-coded chart she'd made herself with the time blocks and check marks. He never argued with her system. She was always just there, not hovering. Not intrusive, present, sharp, unshakable. I remember catching her one night sitting in the hallway back against the wall, eyes closed. The baby monitor was next to her. She listened to it like it was a prayer. I leaned against the opposite wall. "Do you sleep at all?" "Sometimes," she replied. Then, after a pause, "He calls for me in his sleep, just says my name over and over." "Nightmares." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just who's left." I didn't know what to say to that. Still don't. What I do remember is how she'd brush his hair when he let her. She used this small black comb, the kind barbers use. Ran it carefully, slowly, through the wisps left on his scalp. He hated feeling unkempt, even near the end. And how she talked to him, never loud, never slow like he was a child. She talked to him like he was still the man who built the house with his own hands. Still, the one who used to argue about car brands and fix leaky sinks without turning off the water main. We all thought he adored her, that he trusted her completely. Why wouldn't he? She was the one who clipped his nails when he couldn't bend over anymore. The one who noticed when his balance was off and got the neurologist to run extra tests. She caught things none of us would have even seen. She made sure the nurse aides didn't skip steps when they were in a hurry. Watched every new pill bottle like it might be poison until she verified the dosage. That kind of devotion, it doesn't come from nowhere. They had something real, or at least that's what we believed. She didn't let us see him near the end, not even for 5 minutes. Not even to say goodbye. The texts started coming 2 weeks before he died. Short, clipped. "He's resting. He's not up for visitors. Doctor said it's better to minimize stimulation." We didn't argue. Who were we to question her? Aunt Lisa asked once, gently, "Could I just drop by, maybe sit with him for a little?" Rachel replied within minutes. He asked not to, said he didn't want anyone seeing him like this. That was it. We nodded along. Told each other it made sense. Dying's a private thing. Maybe Grandpa wanted dignity. Maybe Rachel was just honoring his wishes. The last photo we got was blurry, a tray of soup on his nightstand, a hand visible in the corner of the frame. Caption said, "He managed a few spoonfuls." No one questioned the angle. No one asked if he'd actually eaten it. It felt wrong, in retrospect, how easily we gave her that power. Not because we were naive, because we were tired. Relieved even that someone else was carrying the weight. She stopped answering calls, too, not rudely, just delayed responses. A thumbs up. A "can't talk now." Once, a voicemail that sounded like she was in the middle of washing something. Water running, breath tight. "He's sleeping a lot," she told us, mostly unconscious. I remember sitting in my apartment, 2 states away, staring at my phone and wondering if I should just drive down anyway. Just show up. But then I'd imagine Rachel at the door, arms folded, face unreadable, explaining how it would only confuse him, how the energy would wear him out, and I'd back down. Again, the thing is, she never lied outright. Not then. Not yet. Everything she said was just believable enough. A shade of truth draped over silence, and none of us wanted to admit how little we actually knew about his condition, about what she was doing day to day, about what those final hours really looked like. We let her build a wall around him, a soft, quiet, padded wall, for his comfort, she said, and we believed her. It was a Tuesday morning when she called. I was in the kitchen, halfway through making coffee when my phone rang. No text first, no warning, just her name on the screen. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. "He's gone," she murmured. That was it. No greeting, no lead-in. Just those 2 words, like she was reporting a power outage. I didn't speak right away, just stared at the window, the steam rising off the kettle. "What happened?" I asked eventually. "It was peaceful," she replied. He squeezed my hand, then he just stopped breathing. She didn't cry, her voice didn't crack. It didn't sound robotic either, just flat. Like she'd already told the story to herself a dozen times before saying it out loud. I whispered something, I don't even remember what. "I'm so sorry, maybe. Thank you," something useless, something cowardly. "I'll let everyone else know," she said. "Just wanted to tell you first." "Why, mate?" A pause. Because I figured you'd want to hear it directly. She hung up before I could say anything else. The group chat lit up less than a minute later. Rachel, Grandpa passed this morning. He was calm, no pain. I was with him. Everyone responded the way you'd expect. Crying emojis, prayers, offers to bring food. No one asked for details. No one asked if we could come by. We all just assumed the same thing. Rachel would tell us when it was time. She knew what to do. She always did. The funeral home picked him up that afternoon. She handled it, filled out the paperwork, talked to the director, picked the urn, silver, simple, no frills. Aunt Lisa offered to help. Rachel thanked her but said it was already done. I had it prearranged, she added. He and I talked about it. That shut everyone up. When I finally made it down, the house looked the same on the outside, but inside it felt hollow, like someone had turned the volume down on everything. No machines, no pill bottles, no chart on the fridge, just a small frame on the mantel with his army photo and a single white rose in a glass vase. Rachel was in the kitchen washing dishes. Alone, she didn't look up when I walked in. I'm sorry, I said quietly. She nodded once. I should have been here, I added. Another nod. Then. It wouldn't have changed anything. There was no anger in her voice, just exhaustion, the kind that doesn't sleep off. I stayed quiet, watched her rinse a mug, Grandpa's favorite, the one with the faded Route 66 print. She dried it slowly, like it was the last thing she'd ever clean. He didn't suffer, she said finally. He wasn't scared. And somehow that was enough. For everyone else, at least, we didn't know yet. None of us did. The lawyer's office was on the second floor of a converted dental clinic, 2 blocks from where Grandpa used to get his hair cut. It still smelled faintly of antiseptic and old carpet glue. We all showed up in black, though no one said it had to be formal. Habit, maybe, or guilt. Rachel sat in the corner, hands folded in her lap, spine straight. No makeup, no jewelry. Her watch was gone too, the one she used to check every med interval. She looked like a nurse without a patient. The rest of us shuffled in slowly. Aunt Lisa clutched a tissue before she needed it. Uncle Paul leaned against the wall like he had somewhere better to be. The cousins whispered in twos, making awkward conversation. I sat across from Rachel and tried not to look at her too long. The lawyer, a thin man with a raspy voice and a clipboard thicker than it needed to be, stood by the bookshelf and cleared his throat. Thank you for coming. I know this is a difficult time. Mr. Conroy finalized his estate documentation shortly before his passing. He was very clear in his wishes. What I'm about to read is legally binding. The room hushed. He read the formal stuff first, name, date, state of mind. Then he began the list. To Lisa Conroy, my daughter, the contents of the savings account ending in 1442. To Paul Conroy, my son, the lake cabin, to do with as he sees fit. To Avery Conroy, the piano and the record collection. She's the only one who ever listened to Coltrane with me. My throat tightened. To each of the grandchildren, a small trust divided evenly. College help or whatever comes next. He kept going, details, clarifications. A note about the house being sold and the proceeds split. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. Then he stopped. Rachel hadn't looked up once, not when the cousins were named, not when Aunt Lisa cried. She waited. The lawyer flipped a page, hesitated. There was nothing else, no mention of her, no thank you, no keepsake. No reimbursement, not even his old dog tags, just silence. The room stayed still. Aunt Lisa blinked. You didn't read Rachel's part. I did, the lawyer replied softly. There is no allocation to Rachel Conroy in the current version of the will. It landed like a punch to the ribs. Rachel's fingers curled slightly in her lap. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared ahead, eyes locked on nothing. Aunt Lisa turned toward her wide-eyed. There must be a mistake. There isn't, the lawyer said. The will was amended, 2 weeks before Mr. Conroy passed. No one said anything for a long time. Rachel's voice was barely louder than a breath. I want to see the signature. The lawyer nodded, already reaching into the folder. He didn't flinch, didn't act surprised, like he'd been waiting for her to ask. He slid the final page across the table, turned toward her, and tapped a finger near the bottom. Dated March 3rd, witnessed, notarized, I have the recordings if needed. Rachel reached for it with a slow, deliberate hand. Her fingers didn't shake. She studied the lines carefully, as if memorizing them. Grandpa's signature was right where it always was, slanted, precise, a little flourish at the end like he was still proud of it. "It's his," she murmured. She didn't ask again, didn't demand proof or accuse anyone, just sat back in the chair like she'd been unplugged from something. Aunt Lisa looked around the room like someone might still interrupt with a correction, a reveal, a twist. Nothing came. "I don't understand," she whispered. She was with him every day. Uncle Paul didn't say anything. Neither did the cousins. A couple of them shifted in their seats, glancing at each other. I just stared at Rachel. She looked blank, not angry, not confused, just hollow. "I cared for him," she said finally. Her voice wasn't raised, wasn't cracked, it was level, calm. "I gave him 3 years of my life." "I know," the lawyer said quietly. "Then why?" "He made the decision himself, without pressure. He asked me to come to the house. He read the documents back to me after I drafted them. He knew exactly what he was doing." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Did he say why?" "No," the lawyer replied. "Only that it needed to be done." For a second, I expected her to argue, to demand more. But she didn't. She just lowered the paper, folded her hands again, and sat in the quiet. Aunt Lisa blinked back tears. "Rachel, honey, we'll fix this." "No," Rachel cut in, "you won't." She stood slowly, smoothed her shirt, and looked around the room like it wasn't real. Like she'd slipped into someone else's memory. "I did everything for him," she whispered. "Everything." No one moved to stop her as she left. She came back into the room 5 minutes later. Didn't say where she went. Didn't explain. Just walked in, sat down, and said, "I want to see the amendment again." The lawyer slid the folder toward her. Rachel pulled out the page, laid it flat on the table. The light from the overhead fixture hit the ink just enough to catch the pressure in the pen strokes. It was his handwriting. Same slant. Same clean loops. Same rigid spacing between words. She traced a finger near the bottom, just below the witness signatures. "This is Shelley Calhoun. She used to work at the pharmacy." "Yes," the lawyer replied. "She notarized it." "She did." Rachel didn't blink. "He was lucid." "He was," the lawyer said. "I wouldn't have signed off otherwise." She kept staring. I watched her eyes scan each word like she was looking for something that wasn't there. Some invisible clause. Some footnote that would unlock the whole thing and make it all make sense. But there wasn't one, just the same page we'd all seen, his signature, his instructions, her name absent. "I was the only one there," she murmured. No one answered. "I changed his sheets every day. Fed him when he wouldn't eat, changed his catheter. I stopped working. I gave him everything I had." The room stayed quiet. Aunt Lisa's hand hovered near her mouth like she didn't know whether to reach out or apologize. "He called me his girl," Rachel added, voice soft. "He said I was the only one who stayed." I looked at her and felt something twist in my stomach. Not pity, not confusion, something deeper. A question I couldn't name yet. Uncle Paul finally spoke. "You think he changed it on his own?" Rachel shot him a look sharp enough to make him flinch. "You think I did something to deserve this?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." The lawyer closed the folder gently, like he was sealing a tomb. "If you want to contest it, you have that right, but the amendment is valid and final." She stood up again, this time slower, controlled. She didn't look at anyone, not even me. She walked out like she was going to war. The murmurs started before the door even shut behind her. "She gave up everything," Aunt Lisa whispered. "He wouldn't do that to her." Uncle Paul rubbed his face with both hands. "Well, apparently he did." One of the cousins leaned over to me. "Is this real? Like this is really happening?" I didn't answer. I was still staring at the door. Rachel wasn't the kind of person you suspected of anything. That's what made it weird, how fast the doubt crawled in once her name wasn't on that page, like it had been hiding in all of us, waiting for a crack. "She took care of him every day," someone murmured behind me. "Yeah, but didn't she also control his accounts?" Another cousin said. "I think she had power of attorney, right?" "She did," Aunt Lisa cut in. "Because none of us stepped up, that's not a crime." I kept my mouth shut. Every defense felt like a trap. Rachel had been a fixture, unquestionable. You saw her and you assumed integrity. She wore scrubs half the time, lived on granola bars and grocery store coffee, gave up everything to move in with a dying man. There wasn't even room for doubt, Until now. Now it was all anyone could feel. How much money was in those accounts anyway? Paul asked, more to himself than anyone else. That's not the point, Aunt Lisa shot back. But it was. That was the thing. Once you start asking why someone was left out, you start asking what they were getting already. And when you don't know the answer, you fill in the blanks with suspicion. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Just needed a second. Somewhere quiet. But even in there, I could still hear the low drone of voices from the next room. Names, accusations, defenses. And then, quieter, someone asking if she'd maybe skimmed. I opened the fridge without looking, closed it again. My hands were shaking. None of it made sense, unless it did. Unless Grandpa knew something the rest of us didn't. I remembered the safe. Not right away. Not during the reading. Not even when Rachel walked out the second time and the room dissolved into whispers and half-hearted theories. It hit me that night, after everyone left. I was upstairs in the guest room, lying flat on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow, uneven circles. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't even close my eyes for more than a few seconds. My brain kept dragging me back through the scene in the office, Rachel's face, the lawyer's voice, the quiet. And then it hit me, the safe. Not the big one in the garage that held tools and old tax records, the little one. Beige, scuffed, tucked behind a stack of blankets in the back of Grandpa's closet. He'd shown it to me once when I was 13, like it was a secret only I was allowed to know. For the real stuff, he'd murmured. The stuff that matters. Back then, it held his war medals, a couple savings bonds, a pocket knife from his father. Maybe it still did, but if he'd changed the will. I slipped out of bed and crept down the hall like a teenager sneaking out. Every step on the hardwood felt loud. The air smelled stale, like vacuumed carpet and pine sol. I passed the photo wall, all those years of smiles, and paused at the door to his room. It was cracked open. The bed was stripped, no machines. No sounds, just empty shelves and a sunken imprint where the hospital bed had flattened the carpet. I stepped inside, heart pounding, and moved to the closet. Still there, still covered in that same ugly fleece blanket. I pulled it back. The safe was locked. Of course it was. But the code came back to me like muscle memory, 9/14, his anniversary with Grandma. The green light blinked. The lock clicked open. Inside, it looked mostly the same. The medals, the bonds. A folded note from Grandma, a locket with her picture. And at the very back, a flash drive. No label, just plain silver, tucked inside a tiny Ziploc bag. I took it and closed the safe slowly, like it might wake something up if I slammed it. Back in the guest room, I plugged it into my laptop and waited. It loaded instantly. A single folder. Rachel, March 12. I clicked and everything started to fall apart. There were PDFs first, dozens of them. Some labeled clearly, bank statement Jan, Venmo transfers, card activity CVS. Others were cryptic, just dates and timestamps. I clicked through one after the other and the picture started building fast. The first file showed his checking account. Regular deposits from his pension, a few automatic withdrawals. But then, in March of last year, the pattern changed. A series of payments started popping up, $300 here, $450 there. Weekly, then twice a week. The line items weren't subtle. Venmo transfers labeled groceries and pharmacy. Except the amounts were way too high, and they never matched up with the actual pharmacy charges. I opened the screenshots next. Venmo history, Rachel's profile at the top. Her username, her photo, a grainy shot of her at the beach. Transfers from Grandpa's account into hers, then out again to other people. One name kept showing up. Bridget M. I didn't recognize it. The notes were vague. Rent, covering bills, just this once. But they didn't sound like someone managing elder care expenses. They sounded like someone funneling money through a side door and hoping no one checked the back end. Another file, an itemized list of ATM withdrawals, dozens of them, all from the branch a mile from the house. Same day, same window of time, all authorized using Grandpa's PIN. I kept scrolling. Receipts, photos of them like someone had been trying to build a case in secret. Sephora, Nordstrom, Ulta, Airbims. One was a nail salon in a part of town Grandpa hadn't set foot in since 2011. The transaction was for $187. I opened a spreadsheet. The numbers were totaled, color-coded, cross-checked with bank statements. Someone, probably Grandpa, had laid it all out in brutal clarity. Over $42,000. Gone. I stared at the screen, waiting for a rational explanation to surface. One that made sense. Maybe she'd used his card and just forgotten to reimburse. Maybe the notes were mislabeled. Maybe she had receipts in a folder somewhere ready to explain it all. But I knew better. She wasn't careless. Rachel was meticulous, controlled. Every spoon, every pill, every damn blanket fold perfect. This wasn't sloppy. This was deliberate, and there was more. I opened the final folder labeled Clips. Security footage. The first video was dated February 18. I clicked play, heart already thudding in my chest. It was grainy, black and white, clearly from an old security camera mounted in the hallway, just outside the living room, facing the front door. You could see the edge of the couch, the walker, the coat rack. Rachel entered from the left, wheeling Grandpa in his chair. He looked thin, smaller than I remembered. Shoulders slumped, eyes unfocused. She was speaking to him. I couldn't hear the audio, but her mouth was moving fast. Not like she was explaining something, more like she was pushing it through before he could stop her. He looked at her, then the camera, then back at her. Confused. Next clip, same angle, different day. She helped him into his coat. His hands fumbled at the zipper. She zipped it for him, then pulled something from the drawer by the door, a card wallet. I recognized it. Navy leather, initials stamped on the side. They left together. The clip cut out. I opened the next one. This time they came back. Rachel wheeled him inside, opened the wallet, took out the bank receipt, and folded it into her back pocket before pushing the chair toward the kitchen. He didn't look like he even registered the movement. Clip after clip, always the same routine. Jacket, wallet, wheel out, come back. Rachel pockets the receipt. In one, she holds up the ATM envelope to him like proof of something. He just stares at it, blinking slowly. She puts it away and grabs a grocery bag from the porch. I paused the footage and zoomed in. Sephora. I sat back in the chair, barely breathing. There was no one else in the footage, no other witnesses, just her and him over and over. In another clip, he tries to stand. She stops him, hands firm on his shoulders. She's not rough, just firm, calm, practiced. That's what made it worse. The calm, she wasn't panicked. She wasn't impulsive. She knew exactly how to move him, how to silence him, how to manage every angle so it looked like care. She didn't steal from him. She used him. The last video was shorter, just 10 seconds. Rachel enters the hallway alone, stares up at the camera for a full second, then turns it off. The timestamp was March 10, 2 days before the will changed. There was one last file in the folder, an email, plain text, no attachments, just a subject line. Amendment request urgent, sent from Grandpa's email addressed to his lawyer. The timestamp matched the day before the notary visit. I opened it, March 11, 10:07 a.m. To R. Greenfield-esque, subject, amendment request urgent. I'd like to change my will. Rachel is to be removed from all inheritances and mentions. She has betrayed my trust and taken advantage of my condition. I have included evidence in a separate folder. Please come to the house as soon as possible. I want this done before I'm too weak to sign. Do not tell her. Jack Conroy. I read it again, and again. It was short, cold, unlike him, no rambling, no old man phrasing. Just sharp sentences. A man who'd seen something, processed it, and decided. I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want that email to be real, but I knew it was. I could hear him in it, the precision, the bluntness, the way he always cut straight to the point when something mattered. And I remembered something from years back before he got sick. You don't protect people who lie to your face, he'd told me once. Not when they look you in the eye and do it anyway. That's not love. That's surrender. He must have known for months, maybe longer. But he waited until the end, waited until she couldn't see it coming. And then he made sure the truth wouldn't die with him. I sat there in the dark, screen still glowing, the room dead silent. The will hadn't been a mistake. It was a message, and I was the one holding it now. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the guest room with the laptop still open, the flash drive in my palm like it might disappear if I let go. Every few minutes, I replayed one of the videos, reread the email, flipped through the receipts like the ending might change. It didn't. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called Aunt Lisa first, told her I needed to talk, in person, no texts, no group chats. I could hear the caution in her voice, the hesitation. What's this about? Grandpa, I said, and Rachel. She didn't ask more, just said, come by. By the time I got to the house, they were all there, not everyone but enough. Aunt Lisa, Uncle Paul, the cousins who still lived nearby. Rachel wasn't, that mattered. They were gathered in the living room like it was another memorial. Except this time, no one brought flowers. I plugged in the flash drive, pulled up the folder, no intro. No build-up, just facts. I played the first clip. No one spoke. Just the soft hum of the video player and the low flicker of their eyes trying to keep up. Clip after clip. The ATM runs, the receipts, the charges, the email. Aunt Lisa brought a hand to her mouth halfway through the Venmo log. Her eyes didn't leave the screen. Uncle Paul sat forward, elbows on his knees, like he was watching a car wreck in slow motion. One of the cousins whispered, "Holy shit." I showed them everything. When it ended, I didn't ask what they thought. I just waited. Aunt Lisa spoke first. Her voice shook. "Are you sure this is real?" "I found it in Grandpa's safe," I replied. "He left it for someone to find." Uncle Paul stared at the email on the screen. So he knew. He knew. Nobody defended her. Not this time. We sat in silence for a while, the way people do when something sacred gets cracked open. There was grief in the room, but it wasn't for Grandpa. It was for the version of Rachel we thought we knew. Aunt Lisa looked at me. Her eyes were red. "What do we do with this?" I answered without thinking. "We tell the truth." And when Rachel walked in 20 minutes later, I was the one holding the flash drive. She stopped in the doorway like she'd walked into the wrong house. The TV was off. No one spoke. Every face turned toward her, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't know what to do with herself. Rachel blinked. "What's going on?" I didn't answer. I reached over, unplugged the flash drive from my laptop, and set it on the coffee table. The screen behind me was still frozen on the last frame, her face under the hallway camera, hand reaching up to turn it off. She stared at it for a long time, then back at me. "Where did you get that?" No one else moved. No one filled the space for her. "The safe," I said, "the one in the closet." Her mouth opened just barely, but no words came out. Uncle Paul cleared his throat. "We saw everything." Rachel glanced around the room, eyes darting like she was checking for exits. "You don't understand." "You're right," Aunt Lisa snapped. "We don't." Rachel's jaw clenched. "That money went to Care, he needed so much." "No, he didn't," I cut in. "Not $42,000 in Care expenses. That included nail salons, designer bags, and hotel rooms in cities he never visited." Her eyes flicked to the flash drive, then back to me. "You don't know what it was like." "Then explain it," I challenged. "Tell us why Grandpa sent that email. Tell us why he wanted you erased from his will." Rachel stepped back slightly, like she'd been physically pushed. "I was alone," she murmured. "I did everything. While all of you lived your lives, I was here, every day, feeding him, cleaning him, watching him fall apart. No one forced you to stay," one of the cousins muttered. Rachel's head snapped toward her. "He begged me to." "And then what?" I asked. "You figured you were owed more, so you started taking it behind his back." "I didn't take," she started but stopped, swallowed. "It wasn't like that." I reached for the receipts, held them up. Designer shoes, Rachel, makeup, weekend getaways. He was in a bed with a feeding tube and you were cashing him out like a credit line. Tears welled up, but none of us moved. None of us softened. "I gave him more than any of you did," she whispered. "No," Aunt Lisa said. "You gave yourself excuses." Rachel sat down suddenly as if her knees just gave out. She didn't cry. She didn't deny it again. She just looked at her hands like they belonged to someone else. No one comforted her. The room had nothing left. The notice came 3 days later, a thick envelope couriered to each of us. Inside, a formal letter stamped and notarized. Rachel was contesting the will. Her claim was straightforward: emotional coercion, mental decline, undue influence. She asserted that Grandpa had been manipulated into amending the will. That someone, maybe the lawyer, maybe one of us, had taken advantage of his state. That she, as his full-time caregiver, had been wrongfully cut out. I stared at the paper for a long time. My name was listed specifically, Avery Conroy, primary recipient of sensitive estate documentation. I wasn't just a witness now, I was part of the case. I called Aunt Lisa. She picked up on the first ring. You got it too. She's really doing this. A long breath. I think she'd rather burn the whole thing down than be left with nothing. That afternoon, we all regrouped in the same living room. Same couches, same silence. But this time, the mood wasn't grief. It was disbelief. She's saying Grandpa didn't know what he was doing, one cousin read aloud. That he was confused, deteriorating. Uncle Paul scoffed. He signed that thing 2 weeks before he died. He was more lucid than I've been in the last 10 years. She's going to drag this through court, Aunt Lisa muttered. Even with the flash drive, even with everything. She's desperate, I said. And she's hoping we are too. There was a second document in the envelope, a response form. Each beneficiary had to make a choice. Either support Rachel's challenge and agree to renegotiate the estate, or uphold the current amendment and fight her claim in court. No in-betweens, no abstaining, pick a side. She's going to try to paint herself as the victim, one cousin said. Caretaker, exhausted, broke, gaslit by a declining old man. And we're the cold family who let her suffer, Aunt Lisa added bitterly. We all sat with it for a while, the reality of what came next. Lawyers, depositions, arguments about intent and competency. Rachel parading her sacrifices like currency in front of a judge, but none of us moved. None of us said we'd support her, because we'd seen it, all of it. And once you see that kind of truth, you can't unknow it. I looked around the room. We have to vote. The envelopes came back sealed. Each of us had to send in our choice, on paper, signed, dated, and witnessed. No calls, no texts, no leaning on each other for consensus. Just ink. Aunt Lisa called me when hers was in the mail. It felt like writing a verdict, she said. Like I was convicting her. You weren't, I told her. You were just telling the truth. I raised her, Avery. I know. The deadline was Thursday. By Friday morning, the lawyer sent out the results. Unanimous. No one sided with her. Not Aunt Lisa. Not Uncle Paul. Not a single cousin. Even Bridget M., the mystery name from the Venmo logs, she turned out to be Rachel's roommate from years back, submitted a sworn statement. Said Rachel paid her rent in cash for nearly a year, claimed it came from a settlement. The judge didn't even hesitate. Motion denied, will upheld. Rachel sat in the courtroom, shoulders stiff, face blank. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. When the ruling came down, she just stared straight ahead. The rest of us didn't celebrate. There wasn't relief, just exhaustion. The kind that doesn't leave even when it's over. Outside, I caught one last glimpse of her standing on the courthouse steps. Her arms were folded, chin tilted up like she was trying to look strong. But no one stood next to her. No hand on her shoulder. No ride waiting. Just silence. She saw me watching and looked away. She didn't say a word. She left that night. No warning, no note, just silence. Aunt Lisa found her room empty the next morning, drawers cleaned out, closet bare. The mattress stripped. Even the old photo of her and Grandpa, the one he used to keep on his nightstand, was gone. The front door had been locked behind her. Her car wasn't in the driveway. No one saw her pack. No one saw her go. She didn't say goodbye. Not to me. Not to Aunt Lisa. Not to the cousins who used to light up when she entered a room with a tray of tea and that tired half-smile. Just gone. The house felt different afterward. Not better. Not worse. Just lighter. Like the tension had finally lifted but left a residue no one wanted to scrub. We moved slowly that day. Rearranged furniture. Opened windows. Threw out half-used bottles of things none of us knew how to pronounce. The nurse aides didn't come anymore. The hospice bed had been picked up weeks ago, but its shadow still sat heavy in the carpet. I passed her room once. Stood in the doorway, clean, blank, impersonal, like she'd never been there at all. But she'd been everywhere in that house. Her fingerprints on every cabinet, every drawer, every ritual. For 3 years, Rachel was the house. Now she was a ghost. Uncle Paul said, she'll land somewhere. People like her always do. Aunt Lisa didn't respond. Just turned toward the sink and ran the water too long. No one tried to call her. No one wanted to. Because even after all the explanations and emails and footage, Even after the receipts and the court ruling and the final, unshakable truth, the part that stuck hardest was the silence she left behind. She didn't fight for us. She fought for what she thought she deserved, and when she didn't get it, she walked out without a sound. Her suitcase had been packed in advance. That's what we decided. There was no way she cleaned out a whole room in one night unless she'd been planning it. Folded her clothes, boxed the framed degrees, even took the stethoscope off the hook behind the door. Gone, like she'd never breathed in that space. We never saw her again. Aunt Lisa checked in with her old roommate, Bridget. Nothing, no answers. The landlord said the mailbox was emptied, keys dropped through the slot. No forwarding address. She disappeared the way she used to show up, quiet, efficient, surgical. The only thing she left behind was the smell of eucalyptus in the upstairs bathroom and a faint impression in the carpet where the med cart used to be. I stayed a few more days, helped clean out the garage, sorted boxes, donated what we could. Aunt Lisa wanted to keep some of Grandpa's things, but not the room. She said it gave her headaches. Uncle Paul brought over trash bags, tossed everything without ceremony. Rachel's laundry basket, her notebooks, a pair of old sneakers she used to wear on grocery runs. Into the bin, no discussion. She made her choice, he muttered. She doesn't get to haunt the place too. But she did. Every corner still felt like her. The chair cushion flattened from her weight. The step stool she used to reach the high cabinets. Her handwriting on a post-it stuck to the freezer. Broth, applesauce, popsicles, check before shopping. She was everywhere and nowhere. One night, I caught Aunt Lisa in the living room with the lights off, sitting in Grandpa's recliner. "You okay?" She didn't look at me. I let her handle everything. I trusted her. "You weren't wrong, too." I wasn't right either. I didn't know what to say to that. Some nights, I'd wake up and swear I heard footsteps in the hallway. The soft shuffle of Rachel checking a monitor, or the sound of her rolling the med cart past the door. Then I'd remember it was just the house settling. She hadn't been here for weeks, but absence can echo just as loud as presence. And she left the place echoing. I walked the halls slowly that morning. No one else was awake. The house creaked like it always did, that low, breathy groan of old floorboards and shifting pipes. Grandpa used to say it was the sound of a home remembering. The coffee pot was empty. The calendar still showed March, though it was nearly May now. No one had flipped the page. I passed the guest room. My suitcase was still half-packed. I hadn't booked my flight yet. Part of me didn't want to. I ended up in the living room. Grandpa's chair sat by the window like it always had. The recliner still had the divot where he used to sit, the shape of him etched into the cushion, even now. The blanket Rachel folded over the arm was still there, untouched since the day he died. I sat down slowly, let the silence settle. The flash drive was in my pocket. I held it in my hand for a minute, turned it over once, twice. Then I opened the drawer in the side table and placed it inside, closed it gently, let it rest. The house didn't feel angry anymore, or tense. It just felt tired, like it had seen too much and finally decided to stop carrying it. I looked around the room, took it all in, the framed photo of him in uniform, the old record player, the dent in the wall from when the walker tipped too hard. We all thought she was the saint, the savior, the one who gave everything. But Grandpa knew better. He saw her when no one else was looking, and he didn't write it in a letter or say it out loud. He did something permanent, and somehow he left it to me to show the rest of them. I stood up, paused by the chair. "I'm sorry it took us this long to see it," I said, out loud into the empty room. Then I turned off the light and left the house behind. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.